That was sane. That was absolutely sane what I just did. You good? I know you good. I hope my changing colorful lights aren't that distracting. I really hope my changing colorful lights aren't that distracting. Simply because, here, let me show you. If I go for these lights instead, it's super bright and there's like a glare. That I think is more distracting. And I have a light bulb there, but that's a light bulb. And that's even more brighter. So, I figured, you know, have a little bit of style going on here. If you guys like the vibe, I shall keep it. I do like vibes. It's the whole reason I got these lights. As you can see, they're not complete. I have a whole other line that I need to do. So, wait till that comes around, I guess. But anyway, we have a certain topic here. I'm sure many of you within the horror scene on the internet have heard of a game called the Garten of Banban. It is the new big mascot horror game that exists within the depths of the internet, and one that is a little controversial. Not because of the actual game itself, but because kind of what it is. Needless to say, people are just kind of tired of mascot horror games that have become incredibly oversaturated. Many would argue there's way too many of them, and many would argue that they're kind of oversaturating the indie horror scene. Personally, I don't blame the games themselves, I more blame YouTubers, streamers, and influencers for focusing on these games, because I really do believe that they mainly are playing them because they're hoping for another Five Nights at Freddy's August 2014 explosion. They want another big FNAF boom so that they can make more content off of these games, make more songs, theories, anything else you can think of. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, you're a hypocrite because you're making a video about it, and sure, why not? But I think mine is going to be a bit different in the sense that I'm not here talking about the game itself, but more or less the designs. Because to me, that's the biggest thing that disappoints me about Garten of Banban is the character designs. A lot of them are very simple shapes, kind of these weird blobs, and I don't know, I'm just not really happy with the designs in question. And I'm sure a lot of people would kind of agree with me on this. The designs, I feel as if, don't really take advantage of the theme in question being kindergarten mascots. So I kind of sat down and thought to myself, what would I do if I designed these characters? So I did exactly that. I took all of the characters from this image here, the sort of wall painting that you see inside the game, decided to take a lot of their personalities, the slogans each and every one of them have, and try to redesign them. Now, before I go ahead and begin, let me just go and clarify, I am not making this video to try and one-up the devs by all means. I am not trying to say that I am better than them by all means, or that they're just horrible, talentless people. This is just my own personal take. When it comes to art and creation, we shouldn't be trying to constantly one-up with one another. The point to art should be expression, and there should be different forms of expression and also different takes on expression. There shouldn't be this unnecessary competition of who's better, because when it comes down to it, art is primarily subjective. A lot of people may like the art of Dr. Seuss or Jonan Vasquez, the creator of Invader Zim, but these are two completely different kinds of artists who work on different things, so I feel as if it's kind of deconstructive to try and pit them against one another, which is also why I'm not a big fan of award shows, because it implies that creation has to become a competition, when in the end it should just be about expression. So with that being said, this is not me trying to one-up the devs or fix the designs. I've always hated the idea of fixing designs, especially you hear that a lot on Twitter, because once again it implies that there needs to be a competition or a sense of superiority when art should not be a place for that, right? I'm not saying art contests are bad by all means, but I also do believe that trying to constantly pit people against one another as a way to one-up or shut other people down is completely deconstructive in the world of art. These are just my takes and personally what I would do with these characters, and if you like them, that's great. Also, please don't be dicks about it. If you like these designs, that's great, but please don't be running down to the devs and be like, look what he did! God damn, you suck! Because that is also deconstructive and kind of the exact opposite of my goal here, just kind of creating my own take and hoping to inspire people. That's really just my overall goal. I want to inspire people. And yes, we've had a really long intro. 6 minutes into recording already. God damn, I need to learn to get to the point. I guess that's why chapters exist. Now, trying to redesign these characters, I originally wanted to take inspirations from actual kindergarten mascots, but when looking at pictures of kindergarten mascots, one thing I've noticed is that they're kind of like high school mascots, but the difference is like high school mascots are meant to look like fierce, they're meant to look kind of more mean and kind of edgy in some regards. While kindergarten mascots are more like super welcoming cartoon characters, they got big old eyes and they're smiling, and I couldn't really find inspiration from those. So, I decided to take inspiration from children's books that would often be read to a lot of these kids around that age, like No David, The Hungry Caterpillar, Rainbow Fish, many Dr. Seuss books, and that's where the inspiration comes from here. If you see a lot of similarities between that and some books, that may be why. Now, of course, let's start with the main face of the game, Banban himself. His slogan is, "Sharing is caring, your pancreas is mine." And the pancreas line just kind of tells me that they knew a lot of people would probably look down on this game, so they were kind of trying to have just a little bit of fun as a way to tell people that, look, we know, like, you're gonna go ahead and view this game in this way, so we're just gonna have a little bit of fun with it. This isn't really something that's meant to be taken too seriously. And personally, I respect that. I respect it when devs have a little bit of fun with their product and it don't just go for like the whole serious 24/7 route. Sometimes you gotta have a little bit of ridiculous fun. For him, I decided to keep the humanoid shape. He's definitely still bipedal in this design. Let me move over so you can see. But what I did was make his design more cartoonish, obviously. His legs are tinier, he's more top-heavy, and he's got these big, swollen Popeye arms. I also decided to change his face. The face takes inspiration from the storybook No David. I liked the idea how his horns were covered in birthday hats, so I decided to keep those and add a little bit of tinsel hanging from the birthday hats. I thought about the role this character would have. Since he's the main face, he would probably be the most welcoming and probably the biggest role model for kids. So for his design, I wanted him to look like a role model and a teacher, but also sort of an entertainer. That's why I gave him this colorful 90s looking tie. And also for his swollen Popeye arms, they are filled to the brim with art supplies. They're filled with pencils, paintbrushes, markers, rulers, and things to encourage kids to entertain each other, to be creative and to be inspired, while also putting them on the right path. Let's say a kid was upset and he could probably pull out a balloon from his little sleeve, blow it up and turn it into an animal balloon. Essentially, these things are filled with God knows how much supplies used to inspire, teach, and help kids, while also probably filled with all sorts of malicious tools for the horror aspect. Now let's go over to Banbaleena, the female variation of Banban. Pretty much her design is that it's pretty much just like Banban, except she's white and she has a bow, a singular bow, instead of the two birthday hats. Her slogan is, "Kindness is free, so sprinkle it everywhere." Sprinkle, that is the word I took the most inspiration from. I thought, she is paper sheet white, dare I say vanilla white. So I decided for this design to make her kind of like ice cream. She has a layer of chocolate over her and also a top layer of strawberry, to make her look sweet, to make her look as sweet as her slogan is. She is also covered in sprinkles because, sprinkle it everywhere, so I thought, why not just cover her in sprinkles? Also, instead of just one bow, I decided to give her two bows, kind of like Banban's two birthday hats, so to add a little bit more flair. Also, I decided to alter her body type to be the exact opposite of Banban's. Banban is more top-heavy, he's got these bigger swollen forearms, and for his face, it's a wider smile with oval eyes, but here she's more bottom-heavy, she's got bigger biceps and skinnier forearms, and she has sort of a longer smile but more circle eyes. So you could tell that she is related to Banban, but not the exact same. Now this is the first character I decided to redesign, and probably the most drastically different of the bunch, Jumbo Josh. He is this big, giant Goliath, this colossus of a mascot, with his huge grin. So I thought, what can I do with this guy? I kind of already knew what he would be all about, just by looking at him. He's big, he's green, these are kindergarten mascots. Obviously his thing is teaching kids to eat healthy so they can grow big and strong, like he is. And that's exactly what his slogan is. His slogan is, "Eat vegetables and fruits to become strong, like me." So I decided to take inspiration from the storybook The Hungry Caterpillar and literally turn him into a giant, huge caterpillar with these opposite side eyes. Of course, I added a little bit of flair in the sense of like these leaves coming out of his head. To make this design really creepy, I thought about the idea of giving him false legs that can swirl together to create hands. As you can see, like, he's still kind of got fingers, but they're like these false legs. They're actually just tentacles swirling together to make hands. Oh, and the eyes on his head, they're completely useless. They're not his actual eyes. The circles on his head going all the way down his back that look like a pattern, those are his actual eyes. And for his legs, they're actually just these little tiny things. I'm actually the most proud of this redesign because I feel as if it is the most me redesign. Some people might not like it because it's definitely, I would say, too different, extremely different, with the only similarities being that they're big and green. Next is Captain Fiddles. Now, he doesn't have a slogan, he has like a catchphrase. He just says, "Ooga booga." He doesn't appear in the first game from my understanding. I haven't actually played the game, by the way. But looking into the information, he doesn't actually appear in monster form in the first game. So, redesigning him was a little difficult. However, I thought his name is Captain Fiddles, and his catchphrase being "Ooga booga" instead of like a motivational term, or instead of like a phrase to inspire and teach kids, I thought maybe he's the villain, right? He's the one, he would be like the swiper no swiping of the group. He would be the, who's another preschool educational villain. You get what I'm trying to say though. He is the foil, but he's still there and he can still kind of be used to help kids in other ways. I guess more in the sense of what not to be. So that's why I decided to exaggerate the captain aspect and make him a pirate. So he's got the eye patch, he's got the hat, he's got boots, but for his hook I decided he'd have multiple hooks to look like a hand. You know, just to add a little bit of flair. I also decided to make him look a lot more hairy and give him bigger teeth to make him look more monstrous, to tell kids right away that, like, this is the guy you're not supposed to be when you grow up. Don't be like him, don't be like Captain Fiddle. Originally, for his body type, since I love this kind of character design, I was gonna make his arms so big that he would have to walk with them. But that didn't really seem true to the shape that they had. Then again, my Jumbo Josh isn't either. I figured, like, one going too far is enough. But I decided, this guy's obviously meant to be small. He's got big arms, but not obviously big enough to walk with, so I just decided, just make him beefy. Also, for a horror aspect, I decided to give him multiple rows of teeth going into his body. Even though it kind of looks like he'd be a little flat in some regards, his mouth makes him look more three-dimensional, I think. Next is Opila Bird. Their slogan is, "Laughter is the best medicine, so make sure to smile." This monster is probably the most, respected out of all the cast. Whenever I see people talk about the good sides of this game, this monster typically is what comes up. People really seem to like this bird. And honestly, he's not a bad design either. I was tempted actually not to include him in this video because I thought the design was fine on its own. But I decided people would probably expect me to redesign him anyway, so I decided to. This one I'm not really the most proud of simply because I think his design is already good as it is, but I still decided to have my own take, and for the inspiration I decided to go for the rainbow fish, you know, that book where the rainbow fish has like these glittery scales. The idea is you're supposed to look at the Opila bird because he's like SCP-173 rules. He stops when you're looking at him, he moves when you're not. So I decided to make him easier to look at. He has these feathers that are all glittery and shine when you look at him. They're a reflective surface. I also decided to give him more feathers and design him to be more like a peacock in this regard, giving him a big bushy tail. I also decided to add a toucan element. Originally he was going to be a toucan, that's why his beak has a lot of stripes. I also decided to go for the false eye idea again. His eyes, his big bulbous eyes on his head, are blind. His eyes are actually on his tail, so he actually has, how many feathers on here? That looks like about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 12 eyes. But like I said, this is the one I'm the least proud of. I still think it's pretty good, but I would definitely say there wasn't really much of a need to change the one that was in the game, because I'm already happy with that one. I think he looks good. Now for the last one, all of the other ones I have shown, I feel as if could still kind of work in the sense that they're meant to be like children's mascots. They're still bright, they're still cartoony and colorful, they just have a little bit of a creepier, disturbed side to them, which I feel as if makes them work in both regards. Like if you just tone them down a tiny bit, they would work perfectly as children's mascots, but if you just flip that very subtle switch, they could work as horror monsters. And that was kind of the idea. The idea is like, kids will look at these characters and some of them would be like, yay, it's Banban, while others would be more like, he's scary, oh my god, daddy. This one I decided to go full horror with. which is why I'm not really too happy with his design. That's just because I didn't know much about him, and it's also because he doesn't actually appear in the game as a monster either. His name is Stinger Flynn. He's this big jellyfish. His saying is, having many arms allows me to help a lot more people. Now, he was the second creature I designed. Like I said, the first is Jumbo Josh, and at that point I decided, why not have all of them be bugs? But that was the trouble I was having with Stinger Flynn, because what bug is similar to a jellyfish? I couldn't really think of any, so I decided to reject that idea and go full horror. I decided to just make him bigger, give him more tentacles, make his tentacles have more control, and also imply that he's giving birth to other creatures. So you see like this kind of like stem going down the center. Like, he's actually creating creatures that go through the bottom. He's actually giving birth to maybe smaller versions of him, or maybe we could add a bit of lore and say this is where all the creatures came from. He was the start. But like I said, I'm not too proud of this design. Not because I think it's bad, but because I feel as if he doesn't really work as well as something that could work as both a horror monster and still like a subtly disturbing children's mascot. You know what I mean? The others I feel as if could work if you just tone them down just a tiny bit. This one, not so much. You would have to tone him down a lot. But still, I don't think it's a bad design. Obviously, I'm proud enough of the design to be able to show you, and that is all of them. This is obviously not going over the monsters that are set to appear in the second game. Maybe I'll do a sequel video, who knows. The developer's already planning to do a lot with this series. Some people are happy about that, some people aren't. I am indifferent when it comes down to it. Personally, I'm a little tired of mascot horror, but not because of the amount of games that are coming around. I know there are other indie horror games. We got like Phasmophobia, we got Dead by Daylight, we got Dead of Night, and several other games. And like I said, the problem isn't those games. I feel as if the problem is like the YouTubers sharing them. I feel as if the YouTubers are trying really hard to create another FNAF boom. They just want another big series to kind of mooch off of. And I know some people might be angry at me saying that, and yeah, it is obvious that some of these developers working on these games are definitely hoping that this will happen, because some of them, like Poppy's Playtime, has a merch button on the title screen. That's kind of obvious what they're doing there. But at the same time, I feel as if these games are kind of non-consequential to the indie horror scene. We're kind of going through just a phase right now, and when it comes down to it, that phase will probably change very soon. It might just take the right person to inspire people and inspire a new trend. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I wasn't trying to one-up anyone or make it or fix anyone's design or make it seem like I'm better than anyone. I was just having fun and making my own take on these characters. If you enjoyed the video, I don't know, do what you do. If you had a beautiful day, I hope it gets even more beautiful and your connection will be strange.